Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live stream, and we are about to get started. We are about to get started in, an, in another minute. Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. How's everyone doing everyone doing today? I hope y'all are having a good week, a good start of the weekend. Um, Today I'm gonna show y'all a video that I saw, and yeah, it's 21 minutes and 12 seconds long. And let me- but yeah, I'm about to go ahead and show y'all um this video. Um, is this right here. I'm gonna go ahead and let the video play.
Joining us here on New Mexico in Focus. Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Your research found a staggering disparity in 2020, where Black women were murdered at nearly 4 times the rates as white women. What does this disparity reveal about the broader and structural forces reshaping violence in the United States? Yeah, well, it definitely speaks to the unique vulnerability of women of color in particular in terms of some of the structural barriers that are faced by communities of color, which facilitate things like high rates of poverty, racial segregation, and redlining have placed African Americans in neighborhoods that experience significant rates of crime, rates of poverty, high police presence, struggles in terms of employment, underemployment, unemployment, all of these things, neighborhood disorganization, all of these things create circumstances that essentially make Black women more vulnerable to experiencing violence in multiple forms. Violence from intimate partners, violence from police, all of these things are enhanced. And so essentially you're dealing with a circumstance where Black women are experiencing these disparities that are literally 4 times as much as what in some places that disparity is as high as 20 times as much. If you look at states like the state of Wisconsin, Black women experience homicide at a rate 20 times that of white women. And so, that disparity varies significantly, but it's present essentially in any of these states. Now, you've described the killing of Black women as a public health crisis. From a population health perspective, why is it important to use this lens when examining the 11.6 per 100,000 homicide rates for Black women? Yeah, it's important because when you think about, this is something that is
killing a significant portion of the population. And anytime we have any type of disparity in disease, for example, when it's acknowledged as a disparity, then there tends to be more resources allocated to trying to understand the problem more and try to address the problem, right? And so part of what we need is just for there to be an acknowledgement that this is a public health crisis. There's still some failure to truly acknowledge that. Once we do, we can better put ourselves in a position to better study, better understand, and better put into place resources that are beyond just temporary quick fixes, but hopefully things that get at some of the underlying factors that contribute to the violence that this community is experiencing and the unique vulnerability that Black women subsequently experience.
Now, in your review of the national mortality data, how often are these deaths misclassified, underreported, and are we potentially looking at numbers that are even higher than this 11.6 per 100,000 residents homicide?
We are definitely looking at the potential for undercounting in this respect. I mean, there's a lot of support for the contention that these deaths aren't necessarily always accurately captured. And that's especially the case with Black trans women. There's often issues in terms of misgendering, sometimes failure to sort of recognize these, especially as hate crimes, that they often are. And so the reality is that we see these disparities, but it's very possible that the full magnitude of that is not fully understood in that respect.
Now, you mentioned Wisconsin. Elaborate on that a little bit. Where Black women were killed 20 times more likely than white women. What's going on in Wisconsin?
The Black community in a lot of places, has experienced significant issues, but Wisconsin is a unique case as well in terms of some of the exacerbated conditions of just poverty and high crime and violence that the Black community has experienced. Most of that community is concentrated in the Milwaukee area. And that city has unfortunately, experienced a lot of significant economic decline, factors associated with that. And the Black community has been disenfranchised there for a long time. The state itself has been problematic in terms of its treatment of Black communities in that space. I have some community connections in Wisconsin, and I've started doing research there multiple years ago. And at that time, about 20 years ago or so, there was even the fact that the Black population represented less than 10% of the state, but yet over 50% of the prison population, right? So there's some significant issues going on in relation to structural racism that has exacerbated some circumstances for Black communities.
The recent conviction of Sean Grayson in the killing of Sonia Massey has reignited a national conversation about police violence. How does the state-sanctioned violence, particularly police shootings, interest your broader findings of the killing of Black women in the United States?
Yeah, so in the sense of sort of this notion of state-sanctioned violence, I mean, you're talking about police officers going into communities, and Black communities tend to be over-policed, which essentially exposes Black communities to encounters with police more often, where research supports that Black women are more likely to be stopped, more likely to be arrested, more likely to be on the receiving end of the use of force from police officers. And so it's not necessarily surprising then that Black women tend to experience higher rates of violence at the hands of police officers, including homicides, right? And the Sonia Massey case was an excellent prime example of that. And the sentencing was great that, that we got some sense of accountability in that respect, because that has been lacking for a long time. But it's still very rare that these institutions are ever held accountable for the killing of Black women. So essentially that was, more of an exception to the rule, but there's still, and that's partly because I'm sure of the amount of publicity and national attention that her murder experienced. you often don't get that. There are so many cases of Black women being killed in general, but by police as well, that don't get that level of national attention. And so the fact that her case did, I think, did contribute to an increased likelihood that there was going to be a conviction and some level of accountability. I mean, you had this glaring video that made very clear the circumstances of what happened there, and the nation saw it. So yes, that was a space where but we definitely need more of that. We need more acknowledgement of these types of homicide, and more officers held accountable when those types of detrimental circumstances happen.
You mentioned the video. In that video, which is very disturbing, it seems to see the reaction from the officer when he was interacting with her. She said something playful: "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." That's a very common term, expression, especially in black communities and Black Americans. It seems non-threatening. He was not aware of this. This education where you're not aware of basic things in Black culture could get you killed. What was your reaction when you heard that?
It was very disturbing. I mean, first of all, they were just words, right? So the fact that such a significant offense was taken by just those words, I think, speaks to the larger dynamics in this society in terms of the place of Black women and what we're supposed to say or not say to authority figures. And if we do respond in a certain way, especially because of stereotypes of Black women, oftentimes even just simple words like that are taken in a very offensive, they're taken as offensive on the receiving end, and subsequently sometimes that overreaction in this case is an extreme case of overreaction to a set of words, right? And that there was a significant disparity there. I mean, she's just an individual who actually called the police to say, I'm concerned that something, I might have a prowler here, right? She was calling for support, so in that and he was the authority figure in that particular space, and he had a deadly weapon on him, right? And so, despite those sort of positions, he took that level of offense to something that was said to him and reacted with lethal violence. And that's part of the problem in circumstances like this, right? That level of disproportionate response or violence or reaction to things like a simple statement, because oftentimes our words are received as offensive or problematic.
Now, here in New Mexico, we've had a lot of focus on missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yes.
What's the overlap that you see or you recognize between murdered Indigenous women and the murdering of Black women?
I do see a lot of overlap there. Excuse me. There has been for centuries now, excuse me, differences in terms of how women of color, and in particular Black women and Indigenous women, our lives have simply been less valued. We've been stereotyped, we've been sexualized, we've been violated at rates that are in significant disparity to white populations, our white counterparts here in the States. And the reality is that there has been limited attention that has been directed towards caring about and addressing the fact that both of our communities are experiencing significant violations of our women to the point where some of those women are actually lost. So we experience higher rates of intimate partner violence, we experience higher rates of sexual assault, and we experience higher rates of murder. And there's a reason why our particular communities are experiencing those disparate rates. And so when you talk about communities that have had historically struggles in terms of being validated and appreciated by this country, that the murder and missing of our women definitely is a manifestation of the fact that our women aren't cared about as much. And we definitely need to, those historical legacies of displacement, of slavery, of, just the devaluing of our bodies, ourselves, our communities, that unfortunately, in some respects, potentially different manifestations, continues to this very day. And that that manifestation, that missing and murdered of both of our communities, women, is a prime example of that.
Now, historically, violence against Black women have often received this limited, sustained media attention and policy attention. How does this invisibility shape our public understanding and the urgency of this response? I keep thinking of R. Kelly. It took us 15 years, almost 2 decades, to finally have some sort of reckoning about his behavior. Why are we not getting this attention for Black women? What's stopping us?
Yeah, I think part of it, again, is the sort of devaluing of Black people's lives. I mean, there's a lot of disparities that we experience. This is just one additional one. But even if you think about things like Black maternal and infant mortality, there are significant disparities there as well. And even as our nation has made progress in terms of sort of addressing on a basic level maternal and infant mortality, the disparities have stayed significant for Black women and Black babies, right? And so this general devaluing of sort of Black lives manifests whether we're talking about Black men that are disproportionate victims of homicide, or Black women in terms of what we're here talking about today, or our babies in terms of infant mortality. And so again, when we're not sort of valuing and appreciating these lives, then their deaths are less consequential. And so we definitely need, and again, because they are, we don't highlight the fact that these disparities exist, and not enough attention is being paid to trying to sort of rectify that. We don't receive the adequate attention. Therefore, the complexity of the problem is not understood. We still want to sort of deny the impacts that things like historical racism and how that has, to this day, generational trauma, disenfranchised positions, those things have continued to affect our communities generation after generation. And unfortunately, if you don't really, value or care about a particular community, you're not going to highlight situations like these disparities. Subsequently, there are a lot of people who, despite how significant this disparity is, don't know that it exists, right? But quite frankly, there's some that don't care that it exists. And so that's why it's important for us to really highlight and get the word out about it, to just raise awareness, and then ideally be able to couple that with adequate attention and resources that, again, address the sort of underlying structural factors that lead to these disparities.
Recently, a Mississippi-based civil rights group released a report that says that there are about a dozen of alleged modern-day lynchings across the southern states. And most of these deaths have been classified as either unsolved or suicides. Without speculating on any of these cases, what kind of questions should researchers and public health officials be asking about these cases? If we have something called modern day lynchings, the hanging of someone on a tree, and someone allegedly committing suicide that way, it raises a lot of questions, but what should we be asking about that?
We should be asking what the real question is, and what we should really have a reckoning with our, historical racism and how that still is manifesting in multiple forms today. I mean, unfortunately, yes, there are people who thought things like groups like hate groups, white supremacist groups, etc. There are folks who honestly thought these groups were gone, right? But they were never actually gone. They kind of went underground, and we saw a resurgence of them from the time that President Obama essentially was elected, and we started seeing, those groups, those actions again, sort of come to the surface, unfortunately. And when you don't have, when those types of groups and actors and crimes aren't properly acknowledged as hate crimes, as aren't fully recognized in the way that they should be, then these things are allowed to continue to happen, because now there's a resurgence and proliferation of those hate groups, that hate speech, and it's not being properly condemned. So it's just sort of growing and manifesting, and people are, now being more bold and blatant about these types of killings, essentially. And unfortunately, until we have a true reckoning with our history in terms of our history of how how Black people came to be in this space, and how they've been treated through centuries, we're going to continue to have those types of episodes that happen, unfortunately.
If we were to look at this data with Black women and the murdering of Black women 5 or 10 years from now, what do you hope you would see? What would progress look like, and how do we achieve that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess on a very basic level, I would certainly like to see those disparities decrease, right? The reality is, we have dynamics of sexism in general that increase the vulnerability of women in general, for example, in relationships. So they're more likely to be victims of intimate partner homicide, to be killed by someone they know, etc. So I would definitely, in general, like to see the murder of women overall decline. But I certainly want to see those disparities narrow, right? When you're talking about, an average of, 4 times as many Black women being murdered, that should indicate a significant problem structurally. And so when we think about, some of the legislation, Minnesota is essentially the first and the only state that has a missing and murdered African American women task force. Similar legislation has been presented at the national level and resisted, and I doubt that will pass anytime soon. And other states such as Wisconsin has put forth similar legislation, but again, that has stalled as well. And those task forces are designed to document and recognize the magnitude of the problem and put resources into actually addressing, studying why the underlying causes of this, and putting resources into sort of addressing that. So I certainly would like to see that legislation advance on a national level, and I would like to see more states also advance similar legislation, and consequently the resources that come along with being able to address things like that. So when we're specifically talking about murder rates, right, in terms of Black women, those are some of the things that would contribute to that. So certainly 5-10 years from now, again, I would like to see the national legislation pass that has been put forth. And I would like to see those task force and those resources being enacted in states, and true efforts to get at some of the things like the disproportionate poverty that African American communities experience, a lot of the disenfranchised conditions in the neighborhoods that facilitate over policing, things like this. And so certainly our police forces need better training and accountability in terms of being able to be more culturally aware, to even better understanding things like how to engage with people with mental illness or in distress, or recognizing hidden biases, unconscious biases that may make you more likely to receive the words of a Black woman in a certain way and potentially react with lethal violence, as was in the Missy case. And so, having those different types of trainings and awareness for agencies like police, but also then having those national and state policies that put resources into recognizing this problem and properly addressing it, again, in a more structural way. There's a reason why these significant disparities exist, and it lies in a structural level. And until we acknowledge that and put the proper resources into that, we're not going to get to the end of it. So 5 to 10 years from now, at the very least, those are some of the things that I would like to see.
Dr. Tamika Gill, thank you for joining us here on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, that was that was a video about Black women in the U.S. unalived at horrifying rates. That's what the video was about. And then I found, and I too think that this issue needs to be talked about more because, again, domestic violence is, it's no joke. And when it comes down to it, this is a this is not a joke. As she said in the video, there black women are being unalived in domestic violence situation, and also you know other factors too, but mainly it's because of domestic violence situations. And I have to say that her findings are on point. Um, and that was Dr. Tam and Tameka Gong. I think I'm saying her last name right. Gillum, yeah. And Dr. Gillum, you know, she's right. You know, and I think the sad part about this is that you know for years it's like when it comes to black women being unalived, the fact is black women are being unalived, uh, at higher rates than than white women are. And and still to this day there are black women who whose cases are not solved. If I'm you know if I'm if I'm correct, but again, at the end of day, when it really comes down to it, is that you know I would say at the end of the day, when it really comes down to it, you know, so I would say that black women being unalived is a health crisis too. I most definitely agree. And we have, I think, one. And not only that, but I found another one. So
I'm I'm gonna try and see if I can find the other one, you know. But yeah, if anyone wants to come up and talk about the first video, the link is in the chat. If anyone wants to come up, um I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna see if I can find the video, the second video real quick. Okay, I found another one. This was from 3 years ago, but it's still relevant to the topic of this special live stream. Um, and this next video is called "Domestic Violence Calls Grew Drastically During COVID." Black women disproportionately affected. Now, this is a video that, again, the first video is a video that, you know, that, a certain someone found. Um, well, I would say the first one is a video that was, that was, that was, well, that came to my attention from a certain someone, and yeah, when 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 I first watched it, I cried, and I waited until tonight to talk about it, because again, black femicide, it affects black women, and then not only that, but you have the mothers, and and you have fathers out there, that are affected by this too, as in the case of Alicia Watts, in in the case of others. When a person who does um when a person that unalives someone with domestic violence, they don't understand that they affect everyone who was around her. And again, you know, and and not only that, but as Dr. Gillum said, when the black women and all the stereotypes, they're not, they're not taking this, they're not being taken seriously and stuff like that.
But here's the thing. The right there. The, how do I say this? The for them to make stereotypes about black women and then, just go total scorch earth, like, I'm trying to you know, figure out how to say this. When when um when a black woman is on the line, you know, it doesn't get as much coverage as you know other races of women who would, you know, who would be who would be missing or unalived or this and that and the third. But I'm starting to see that it's getting that black femicide is getting more attention. So I am legitimately happy about that. I am legitimately happy. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this last and second video that I found. I'm gonna go ahead and do it right now.
I feel like domestic violence, sexual assault, these are things that are with us all the time. They are problems that we don't focus on as much as we probably should. But I am intrigued by the idea that things have gotten worse during the pandemic. I guess I can't say I'm terribly surprised. But let's start with why we think this is an even bigger problem, or has been an even bigger problem over the last 2 years.
Well, number one, the pandemic has created that space where there is even more isolation. So one of the major things with intimate partner violence and domestic violence is that isolation. You're slowly cultivated into stepping away from your family and spending more time with your abuser. And then with the pandemic and that period of lockdown and shut-in, it became more pervasive. So we found at Haven, we found that our crisis line calls increased from family and friends. How do I extract them from that situation? But there's nowhere to go. The hoteling had shut down. We also were seeing an increase of intake. So it was harder for people to get out and get extracted. One of the major things that we found during this pandemic period is that was the perfect storm for an abuser. They're not working, they're at home more. As we know, with abuse, every little thing is orchestrated and it's meticulous and it is manipulative to the point where, just cooking the wrong meal could be an issue. So that became cause for more, as you see in media, more fatalities, because we're together 24/7 in an already scary and volatile situation.
Yeah.
So, Haven saw that uptick. Our resource calls came in. We were trying to help everyone, especially parents and family members, with resources in community that would help. But again, for a survivor of domestic violence, that choice is ultimately theirs of when they can leave, how they can leave, and even safety for their family and friends, because the abuser is going to then start lashing out in those ways.
Yeah, yeah. And so places like Haven, of course, then take on added importance at a time like this, because, as you point out, it's harder for people to go anywhere to get away, and so some place like Haven ends up with more people, I would imagine, than it normally would. Give us a sense of, I guess, the range and the scope of the problems that you're seeing. I'm really particularly interested in these numbers that suggest that for Black women in particular, domestic abuse and sexual assault are much bigger problems than for other parts of the population.
Typically, what is typical is in a situation with a African American woman, Black woman, or a person of color, the impetus is, well, it was just a fight, or they were just having a discussion. Whereas with our counterparts, our white, I don't want to just label it as women, our white victims or our white survivors, they're more believed, right? That this was an issue, this was a problem. The nature of the problem is escalated. So what we found is a lot of the people who come to us, we are the first call. We are the ones who believe. We believe this is happening to you, and we invite you in to either have a conversation. We do our crisis line calls. The impact for Black women, and particularly lower income Black women, is we don't call right away because we know what that may do to a Black man. So we will sit in a situation just a tad bit longer, and then again, it goes back to, well, why didn't you leave? Or why, what do we say? Well, why didn't you call earlier? Well, because who are you going to believe when you get here? Because we're both Black. So that has been kind of the scope and the scenario when we're a little bit trepidatious about calling. But the violence is real. The violence has always been real. It is a societal issue, and it's not just a problem for Black people or white people or the Asians. It is a societal problem in the way that we handle our relationships and conversations with one another. But when you look at who we serve at Haven, the plethora of the people who come in are African American Black women with children, a number of children, small children, toddler age children, and they are lower income. With a household to moderate to high income, they typically have funds where they can just get counseling from us, or they can get that kind of support or help from family members, right? Because they can lawyer up and they can do those things. But at Haven, that's what we do. When you come to us, we provide you with advocacy in the courts. We pay for PPOs. We pay for your clothes, your food, transportation. Your tags aren't right. We pay for those type of things because we know the barriers to extracting yourself from that situation is typically financial. There's some emotional abuse, but it's typically financial, and it's heart-based, right? How am I going to leave with my children and also with my pet, because I'm not going to leave my dog or cat in that situation? And we welcome them in, and we say, come in and we'll take care of everything for you. So we do the document retrieval. We make sure that, if you needed SNAP benefits, we're helping you fill that paperwork out. If your children need to go to school, we help you with schooling. And, Pontiac Public Schools has been amazing because they help us with that, and they make sure that those families are protected and they know that we're there. So we try to keep them safe. However, Stephen, we are an open facility. There's no gates, no bars, we have protection. We are protected, but we are open because abusers do not come to us. In Oakland County, 5 minutes from the sheriff's department to create that abuse. So the families that come to us, and we do accept men as well because men are also abused. The families that come to us are highly protected, and we are highly confidential. So even if my child came, they couldn't tell me. So we keep all of that under wraps. 45% of the women who come to us cross 8 Mile. They are families from Detroit. And we help them set up, we help them get in their apartments. We have 4 transitional houses, so some of them qualify for housing. We're trying to expand that program right now, so we're working with the partner to make that happen. And we work with other partnerships within Pontiac, and we're talking to real estate companies because there's a bunch of homes that are vacant that we will help renovate and get those families in there. But our message and our goal is empowerment. You make the decision for you, because that is the issue with domestic violence and sexual assault: power and control. Yeah. They are trying to take power and control your movements and the people you talk to and the things that you do. And we also do workforce development and try to help them with their resume building and skill building, because we want people to feel and live a life of safety. We want you to feel safe wherever you go, but even after you leave us, we're still there, and we do up to 2 years worth of counseling after they leave. Now, speaking of counseling, our calls for counseling, we have a wait list of over 100 people.
Wow.
Just for counseling. And that we continue to expand that program, and we go out in the community. And right now we are in Royal Public Schools. We are opening our doors to Southfield Public Schools, and we are in classrooms trying to prevent sexual assault and domestic abuse through education. So we have a whole team that goes out. We just recently signed a partnership with Bank of America, and we will be doing some community work to talk about the social issue and how we can prevent it in our children so that it eradicates itself, basically. So I'll be out of a job, but at least people will be safe, and we know that they're always safe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, education is important.
That is absolutely the key, and as you say, starting early is really the key. Okay, Movita Burris of Haven, it was really great to have you here on American Black Journal. Thanks so much for stopping by.
And that was the video from 3 years ago. I wanted to go ahead and share this with y'all. But yeah. What she said and what Dr. Gillum said is actually true. It really is. Especially when, to this day, we got Jane Doe cases that involves Black women that haven't even been solved. I even seen it on the Wikipedia. And oh man, I can't count how many Jane Doe cases featuring Black women that I saw. And there were a lot of them. I'm already seeing, I think it was 2 to 3, and then there was another one. I think it happened on yesterday. They found a I think it was in I forgot that state where they found a body that was burned. Yeah, they found a body that was burned, and it turns out it was a body of a missing black woman who was a mother. Now, I forgot which state it was. Maybe I can type that in. I'll be able to show it to you all later. But yeah, um, also I got another video that I want to show y'all. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show y'all this video right here. Okay. Okay. And here's the video, and I'm going to go ahead and play it. And this is for educational purposes. This is for use for educational purposes. And here we go. And the guy that I got married to was 24 years old at the time. He was physically abusing me. He ended up literally slapping me across the face with my baby on my hip. He jumps out and he comes running at me and he fly kicks me in the chest. I got robbed, raped on the journey. I'm on the floor, I'm leaning. He's got his knee on my chest. His other knee is on my neck. He's there on top of me, screaming, I made you, I am. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here.
So, Sumaya, nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Can you speak about your childhood a bit?
I grew up in the UK. I got to the UK as a young child under the age of 4. However, we did grow up moving around the UK. So from London to Birmingham, from school to school. So it was a bit hectic in terms of that. There was no stability, but other than that, everything was kind of okay up until I was about 10, 11 years old. And that's when we moved to Egypt, which initially started off as a holiday because my grandma lived there, my mother's mother. My mom fell in love with the culture and decided, hey, because of the culture and the religion, I'd like for us to stay here, as well as that she had her mother there after not having her for like 16 years. After that, I think life kind of just went a bit left for me. It started off with having FGM done to me when I first got to Egypt, which is forced female mutilation. I had type 1 done, which is where they cut the off, and that really traumatized me, and that was the first traumatic event that happened in my life. And I think that triggered my mental health, where I started becoming more anxious, just a lot all over the place, if that makes sense. Moving forward, I started having panic attacks, which led to me having issues with my mental health. My mother then took me to get checked out to see what was going on, and they mentioned to her that I may have some mental health problems. However, nobody did take that serious within my family. After that, I think I started acting out maybe as a kid, and I'm 12 years old at this point, trying to go to school, not understanding the language, not understanding anything, and it was just difficult in general. And I think that's when I started being taken out of school, being groomed at home, and just being told to cook, clean, and take care of the kids and babysit, if that makes sense. And that was what I dealt with for the next couple of years while being homeschooled. And that was when I got to 15. And around 15 is when things became a bit more severe. Due to my mental health issues and stuff, I ended up struggling with everything that was going on, with the way my life was set up and everything else. I wasn't coping well. And because of that, my family deemed it necessary that I was forced into a marriage with an older man. I declined. I said no, I wouldn't want to get married to him, whatnot. However, on my 16th birthday, I was tricked to go to Dubai with my father as like a birthday holiday. He ended up getting me some gifts and whatnot. Once we were at Dubai, he tells me that I've got business in Somalia, I need to go there, and we're only going to be there for a week. So let's go to Somalia quickly. And once we get to Somalia, my dad rents a house, puts us in there, puts us up in the house, me and my brother, and then tells us, hey, you're staying here, you're not leaving, and this is where you're going to be staying. You're not going back to England, you're not going back to your mom. So he then enrolled us into school, and around 3 or 4 weeks while going to this school, one day after school, my dad had a guy in the living room of the house that we was at. Me and my brother came home, we walk in and we see the guy, and my dad and my brother rush out of the house, and I asked my dad what's going on, and he tells me sit down and speak to this man, basically. And I'm asking him why, and he was like, well, I just need you to speak to this man because you're going to be getting married to him soon, so you need to have a conversation with him. So I just felt really uncomfortable, and the guy's there trying to have a conversation with me. Eventually my dad does come back and whatnot, and it is agreed that I should be getting married in the week following that. The engagement happened. They did a small wedding. I didn't have anybody of my family there to support. However, there was a woman from my dad's side of the family that was ushering everything and pushing everything, if that makes sense. And she was the one that was encouraging me, pushing me to get married to this man, to be like, Sumaya, what other thing are you going to be doing? This is your husband. This is what you're meant to be doing as women. It's just a lot of grooming talks. I was 16 years old when this happened, and the guy that I got married to was 24 years old at the time. After the wedding, things were very intense because as soon as the wedding happened, I was dropped off to the house that me and my father were living in, and to find out that they had set up the whole house for a wedding couple, if that makes sense. So they set up bedroom, furniture, living room furniture, they sort everything out, and they said, this is where you're going to be living. Also, my dad gave the man $2,000 to take care of me, to keep me. I don't know, but $2,000 was handed over from my dad to the man that I was getting married to. And then my dad disappeared, and he decided that he was going to Kenya with my brother, and they left me in Somalia by myself with this stranger. I was there for 4 months. I ended up getting pregnant, and I called my mother to let her know that I was pregnant and I didn't want to continue staying there. And at the time, I fibbed, but it was because I knew, had I said that the guy was abusing me, that I wouldn't be taken serious, and I would be told that's a wifely duty that you need to do to your husband. So I fibbed and I said that he was physically abusing me instead. So once my mom heard that he was physically abusing me, she booked me a flight and got me to come back to the UK. And I was 16 and 2-3 months pregnant at the time. I came back to the UK, found out I was pregnant. I continued the pregnancy, had my child in the UK. My mom helped me. I dealt with postpartum depression at the time. It was very much a struggle for me to take care of the child. Even bonding with the child was very difficult for me at the time. So my mom stepped up and took care of it. While that is going on, my dad forced me back into college because he was saying that if a woman was supposed to be living in his house. She was either meant to be working or education, that nobody can be sitting idly in the house. And I am 6 months pregnant at the time. So he forced me to go back to college at the time, pregnant and all, to study. At the time, after I gave birth, I kind of started falling off from education. As I said, everything was just becoming really difficult. My mental health was going down the drain. I couldn't focus. So I started using the college time to just go outside and just do whatever I wanted to do, like skip school basically. My parents found out that I started skipping school, and they started threatening me to say that they would send me back to Somalia or whatnot. During my pregnancy, I asked my parents if I could get a divorce once I had come back to the UK, and they said to me, as a Muslim woman, you cannot ask for a divorce while you are pregnant, so you have to wait until after your pregnancy and you give birth. That's only when you can ask for a divorce. So I waited until I gave birth to then pick up the divorce conversation. I picked it up and I told my parents, hey, I would like a divorce now that I've given birth. I don't want to be married to this man no more. So my parents called him and had a conversation with the man, told him what I wanted. So I spoke to him and he said to me, is that what you want? Is it a divorce what you'd like? I said, yes, I would like a divorce. I thought I was divorced at this time. Couple of months go by, my mental health is still draining. My parents then come up with this plan to get me out of the country, and they said, hey, because of your mental health is going really bad down the drain, why don't we take you to South Africa for a change of scenery, and you can just basically relax a little bit, and then you can take care of your son. But in the meantime, we're gonna have to go past Somalia because the baby needs his dad. I'm not gonna lie, at 17, I was very naive and I didn't really understand the whole concept or anything. And I trusted my parents blindly, so I followed them, and that's how I got stuck in Somalia a second time. 7 days go by, I call up my mom. I find out that she's at the airport headed back to London. And I'm on the phone to her asking her, hi, mom, how are you? Like, where are you? Like, and there's just a lot of loud noises going on behind her. And she's like, oh, I'm at the airport. I'm about to board my flight. I'm headed back to London. And I was like, what, mom, are you leaving me here by myself? And she was like, well, yeah, you have a husband and basically you're a married woman. Go back to your husband, basically. And I said, excuse me, am I not divorced? I thought you said I was divorced. I asked for a divorce 3 months ago. So what do you mean now, 3 months later, I'm still married and I'm a married woman? Well, she's like, well, that didn't happen. So now you're married. You need to now deal with your husband, basically. And she got off the phone. A few weeks go by and his dad is back from the city. And he's trying to now lay down the rules and be like, this is my house and this is what the rules is and whatnot. And it was just a lot basically going on. So, and then he also was trying to have sex with me and I wasn't comfortable with it. So I kept putting the baby in between us. I was using the baby as a shield for the time being. One morning, I had the baby on my hip and I can't remember exactly what it was we were arguing about, but we were arguing and he started raising his voice at me and I must have said something to piss him off. I can't remember exactly what it was. And he ended up literally slapping me across the face with my baby on my hip. And I just didn't feel comfortable anymore. And I'm just like, you're now putting hands on me with the baby on my hip. I don't feel comfortable. So I ended up calling my cousin and I ended up trying to call my parents to let them know that this guy is slapping me and I don't feel comfortable staying here no more. With that being said, my parents didn't pick up the phone calls. Me and my cousin are worried. So we ended up calling her father and her father said, hey, if that's what she's dealing with, no niece of mine should stay in that kind of predicament. So please go help her out from that situation, but also call up one of your cousins and tell him to come pick you guys up. So we arranged for one of our guy cousins to come pick us up with his car, and that me and my cousin were going to go back to the house and pack up our things and get me and the baby ready to leave. So once me and my cousin come back to the house, we start packing up quickly, just putting things back in the bag, getting the baby ready. I don't know, maybe his mother, the baby's grandma, realized something was going on, because I don't know, this is happening within like 5 to 10 minutes. Once we come out of the build, like the house, and we're waiting outside for the driver, and the driver's telling me, oh, we're outside, we're 2 minutes away, we can see the house, we're just driving down the road. We come outside, and down the road we can also see another car zooming down, kicking up dust, like it's speeding. And I'm looking at my cousin, I'm thinking, why is that car speeding? And I look closer, and all you can hear is my ex-husband screaming, shouting, and I already know, like, I had the baby on my hip, and I already knew, like, I was gonna get beat. So I gave the baby to my cousin, and I see the car abruptly stop. He jumps out, and he comes running at me, and he fly kicks me in the chest. I end up falling back, hitting my head on a rock, and I lose conscious. I don't know how long I was out for, but the next thing I know, I wake up to is, in the distance, I see my cousin and him using the baby as like a tug of war, and they're pulling the baby. One's pulling one side, the other one's pulling the other side. I literally just get up and run towards them, and I grab my child. Like, I grab my child from both of them, and I'm holding my child now. As this is going on, the guy starts like beating me again at this point, and another third person grabs up the child and takes the child, and they take it back to the grandma. While this is happening, they're beating me, and at this point now I'm on the floor, and people decide to grab my arms and legs and drag me inside. And while they're trying to drag me inside, my cousin is not letting that happen, and she sits on top of me while they're carrying me to put more weight so that I don't be dragged inside to the house. Now there's like a crowd of people around, and everybody's watching, and it's just, the situation is getting really hectic. So they took us into the next door neighbors, and that's when they called the family, and lo and behold, the family pick up now. A couple of hours ago, I was getting ignored. So now the family are not even believing that I was beaten up, and that this happened, and that the community, like the neighbors and everybody else, got involved, until like there was at least 4 or 5 different people to confirm that this is what had happened. And they tried to push me back to go back into that house. And at one point I also saw him inside the house arguing with his mom, and he ended up slapping her at some point too. That's something I saw, and I was like, if this guy feels comfortable slapping his own mom in the house, how do I feel comfortable going back into that house? What could he do to me? So I didn't feel comfortable. And they also gave me an ultimatum, which was, either you go back, like, either you can go by yourself, or you can't take, basically they made the child stay. They said, if you want the child, you have to stay in the house. And if you want to leave by yourself, you can leave by yourself, but the child's not coming with you. At that moment in time, I was more scared for my life than I was for the baby's life. So I decided to save myself. I was divorced from the guy finally. After that, I'm still now stuck in Somalia. I'm still staying in a random house in the same city as this man. So I traveled to Hargeisa, and I ended up going to stay with my aunt and her kids. I was there for a couple of months, and during that time frame, this aunt was limiting communications between me and my parents, also telling them a lot more lies. Sumaya is a menace, Sumaya does this, Sumaya is always outside, just tacking on the lies and saying that I was a bad influence to her children, while also she was kind of giving me advice on what to do, or what other girls at the time were kind of going through. And she gave me the bright idea to end up going to the British consulate in Ethiopia and contacting them and asking them for help. So I ended up calling the British consulate in Ethiopia, and I told them, hey, this is my story. I don't know what to do, and I'm kind of stuck here at the time. So the British consulate said to me that they couldn't really do anything for me, and the only thing that they could possibly do is if I got myself to the consulate, that they could help maybe. So I then decided to use the last bit of money that I had, which was probably like $500, $600, and use that money and make the journey from Hargeisa to Addis Ababa by myself. Honestly, that journey was a journey from hell as well, I'll be very frank. Took over the course of 2-3 days, got robbed, raped on the journey, but we finally made it to the consulate. So once I made it to the consulate, I told them right at the front door, hi, I'm a British citizen, this is my ID, I don't have a passport, and I was forced into a marriage, and I'm only 17 at the time. And then they were like, so they took me inside and they started to process like if I was genuinely a citizen. I think they kind of confirmed I was, and then they listened to my story. I had to repeat the story a couple of times to a couple of different officials to confirm that this is something that did happen, just to corroborate the story, whatnot. Finally, they did say that we're going to put you through to the forced marriage unit, and they also helped me. Basically, they put me up in a hotel in Ethiopia, got me an emergency passport, did the little paperwork so that I could leave the country, made my way back to London. They paid for my flights as well. So I got back to London. Once I touched down in London, the police collected me off the flight, and the police handed me over to the social services at border control. And that's how I ended up in social services. I stayed in social services until I turned 18, and then I was moved to another facility. And that's how I made it back to England in one piece. 18, I live in London now. I'm getting really lonely. So I end up contacting my mom. I tell her I'm back in the UK, no thanks to her. I left a very menacing voicemail, I'll be very frank, as I'm back. Like I never left. But yeah, I think once she found out I was back, she kind of started looking for me very much, calling up, trying to find out where I am, whatnot. Eventually, she got my number and she started pleading me, whatnot, to be like, Mom, please come back. Your dad's not here in the house. It's just us. I miss you. I would feel really like, I feel worried about you. Can you please come? After a while of just kind of speaking to my mom, I felt like I don't know, maybe I felt like I couldn't do this by myself. So I went back to my mom. Life was kind of seeming okay at first until my dad popped out of nowhere, and then we were back at square one. A lot of controlling behaviors, a lot of abuse. After that, during the time while all of this is going on, I was in contact with my childhood crush, I think. Yes, I was in contact with him on Facebook, and we used to speak here and there. And during this time frame, we built a relationship, and we were talking about marriage and whatnot. And for me at the time, I was using marriage as an escape, because at the time, growing up, the only thing that as a Muslim woman, you're told you're not leaving your parents' house unless you're married. There's no way you're moving to another place unless you're married. So for me, marriage seemed like the perfect escape, if that makes sense, to get away from this house. So we spoke about marriage. Everything was kind of going well. So we committed. We said we're going to get married, and that's what was going to happen. Booked my flight. I made my way to America 2012, June, and we got married a week or two later in July. The background that I'm from, which is already traumatic and abusive, I wasn't picking up on the verbal abuse that I was receiving from him, the manipulation. I wasn't picking up on it. I just thought it was normal things until it slowly escalated. And it escalated to the point where it started with shoving, pushing, shouting, getting in my face, threatening. It was really bad. So over the course of 6 months, it went from small shoves, I'm so sorry, I would never do that again, to a full-blown beating. reality didn't hit maybe until a year later. And I think maybe the third time he put his hands on me, I think that's when I started fighting back, because before that I wasn't. I think after that I was getting annoyed because I haven't done anything to you, and all you're doing is pushing me, shoving me, hitting me, balling your fist up, punching me. So I wasn't allowed to speak to my mother on the phone. And why I wasn't allowed to speak to my mother on the phone? Because I let it slip one time that my mother doesn't like him, and that she feels like he's a bad influence. The one day I'm sat there after work, I'm really tired. I'm speaking to my mom and I forget myself, and I've just been speaking to my mom for 30, 40 minutes, and then realize he's at the door and he'd come in. So I was like to my mom, bye, I gotta go. Yeah, I went into the closet to start organizing it because there's clothes everywhere, and we just moved into this house. So I thought, let me get productive, because I couldn't hack him shouting at me because that's all he ever did. So I was like, okay, cool, let me act like I'm being productive. So I went in trying to clean, and I put music on my phone. All I'm hearing is my phone like get more distant. So it was picked up. So I come outside of the closet to look, and he's picking up my phone and he's kind of going through my phone. So I didn't want him to see that I was speaking to my mom, because whatever I do, I'm going to get the brunt of it. So I was like, I don't want him to see, because I can't hack another fight, another argument, another something. So I said, hey, why do you have my phone? I snatched my phone off of him and I was like, don't look at my phone. Why are you going through my phone? And he literally just started getting angry, and then literally started balling his fist up, came towards me, snatched the phone out of my hand, and then grabbed my neck and then pushed me to the wall and started squeezing it. And that's when I decided I'm fighting back. This was a very long fight. Like, it was going on for like roughly an hour. Just back and forth, throw this, throw that, punch, run away, do this, do that. Finally, he eventually gets me onto the floor. I'm on the floor, I'm leaning, he's got his knee on my chest, his other knee is on my, and he's there on top of me screaming, I made you, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for me, you would be nothing. Just trying to break my spirits. I kind of come out of it eventually, and we're now tussling, and he ends up throwing me into, like, the balcony was open. He ends up throwing me into the balcony. Before he even throws me, he has him in his hand, and he me in my eyes, and he closed me in the balcony. And I'm there in the balcony thinking, discombobulated and burning eyes, can't see anything. And he has me locked there for a good 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know. He called his mom. Next thing I know, his mom comes opens the balcony door and takes me out of the balcony. And instead of his mom trying to mediate the situation, she grabs me by the hair and drags me 1-2 roads down to their house to lock me up in their house. And they had me locked up in the house for the next 12 hours. Took my phone, didn't let me contact nobody, nothing. I used one of his sister's phones to speak to my family to let them know what was going on. And my family ended up calling one of my other cousins in the city, and he ended up coming to pick me up by force the next morning. I even tried to run away at some point, and they found me again, and they dragged me back into the house and they locked me. He was very abusive. He even ended up at one point putting a gun to my head, telling me I could you right now, and we had some woods behind our apartment complex, and he said to me, if I were to shoot you right now, nobody would hear you, and I would put your body up and scatter you across the forest, and nobody would be able to find you. So I was always scared. The amount of times that we had police pull up to the house and I could never say anything because I was so scared. Finally, this whole situation longs out. It goes over 6-7 months. We got the police involved. We had court cases. I had a restraining order twice. It was a very dangerous, long. I don't even know how to say it. It was a lot on me. I had attempted to leave the guy a couple of times, and it didn't work out. I always ended up back at square one. And I ended up trying to go to Minnesota, like that's where my uncle lives. And I did go, and he also threatened me and said that I have people there as well, I can find you. It was just really long. He stole my passport and all of my documents too. There was a time. So we had it in the house in a safe, and he ended up stealing the safe out of the house, so I couldn't receive my stuff. So over the couple of months where the restraining orders happening, the court cases happening, he has my passport in possession, and he doesn't want to give it. So at some point, I'm thinking to myself, I need to leave this country, and I don't think I can go back to a British consulate a second time and tell them, hey, I don't have a passport. Please take me back home. I just felt like they wouldn't let it happen. I don't know. At the time, my head was just saying, Smee, you need your passport. You need your passport. So what I did is that I pretended that I made up with him, and I had this fate for 3 months. During those 3 months, I was trying to show him that he could trust me. I was trying to show him that we were a couple. So one nights, I end up basically crashing out, saying, hey, I've done all of this and I've been here for 3 months and I haven't even pursued, like I've been on top of the restraining orders, like I haven't done anything to you specifically, so can I not get my passport? His sister was involved at some point as well, so we made a deal that he was going to give me my passport, but I didn't feel comfortable because I felt like they were going to take my passport again. And so I said, can I bring my cousin and you guys, we meet somewhere in the middle and I get my passport that way and I don't keep it in the house, if that makes sense. So that I didn't feel comfortable having my passport with him around, because he took it once, he could take it again. So my cousin agreed to drive me to this car park in the middle of the night, 11 p.m. to exchange passports. Honestly, it was so scary because my cousin had and they were pointing at each other. Eventually, after some back and forth, I get my passport back. He gives it to me. I decided, now that I have my passport, I need to now find the best window for me to leave. I said I need at least a whole 24 hours before he figures out I'm missing, if that makes sense. So he had a 16-hour shift, 2 shifts back to back one day, and I decided this is the best opportunity for me to leave this country. So as soon as he moved that morning to leave, I called up my mom that same morning and I said to her, Mom, I have my passport. I would like to leave now. So she called up a couple of people that she grew up with back home. They sent a cab. The cab came, pick me up. It wasn't tracing back to me or anything. Same night, the next morning, I was put on a flight to Minnesota to my uncle. I got to my uncle. I stayed at my uncle's house for 1 day, and then they booked me a flight back to London. And that's how I came back to London 2013, October. A lot has happened. Now I'm 20. I'm in the UK. My mental health is down the drain, considering I've been through forced marriage, domestic abuse, trauma, just a lot. I decided I wanted to just start working, fend for myself, do whatnot. So that's what I did. I was working. Finally, things went left. I ended up becoming homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go. I'm here in London at this point. I'm sleeping at random friends' houses for a good 6 months. Eventually, one evening, a random friend decides to try to assault me. That throws me off the edge. I try to unalive myself. I'm put in hospital for a good 2 to 3 weeks on suicide watch. After that, my mom found out that I did that, and she said, okay, cool. She said, hey, Smail, we understand that you have mental health issues. Why don't you come back to Egypt and we'll take you to hospitals and we will get you therapy and put you on medication and we'll try to sort out whatever's going on in your life to help you basically cope with whatever's going on. I went to Egypt. They started me. I felt like a zombie. I was in and out of just consciousness. I wasn't doing anything. I was gaining weight. I didn't feel like myself. So after a while, I stopped taking the medications and they started to say, oh, you're going back to your old ways. whatnot. Also, I was having a therapy session going on at the time, and the therapist had a mentality of, you're Muslim, your family lives here, you're not, why would you move back to England? And I'm telling him, I don't, like, just because my mom and her siblings live, like, I mean, my mom and her kids live here doesn't mean I live here. I live in England. And he's like, no, you're a Muslim. You need to be where your mom is, your family, da da da. And it's just triggering me to be H. So I bugged out, and I was like, I'm done going to therapy no more. And I booked myself a flight back. I tried to book myself a flight back. I actually did. My flight's in 2 days' time. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. I go to sleep now, just slowly packing up trying to be as discreet as possible because I'm not trying to have my mom find out I'm going back. I go to sleep. Next morning, I wake up to my dad waking me. I'm thinking, huh? And I rub my eyes, I open it again, and he has my passport. And I'm looking at him like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. I've got your passport. Yeah. And then he also threatens me right then and there. And he says, if I ever catch you smoking a cigarette, yeah, you're done for, basically. And at the time, I smoked cigarettes. So I'm thinking, what? And he threatened me. So anyways, that evening, I decided, oh my God, I can't even stay in this house. Let me go out. So I went out with some friends. I went to do some shisha. I ended up putting it on my Snapchat. Somehow, some way, one of my siblings showed it to my parents. I come back home, and yeah, my phone was confiscated, my laptop was confiscated, and I was locked in the bedroom. I wasn't allowed to leave the house. The house was under lock and key at all times. Yeah, I was in that room for a good 6 weeks, 7 weeks. During that time frame, I had one of my siblings go buy me cigarettes indiscreet and pass it to me, and I used to smoke it outside my window around 2 a.m. every night. One night, I'm there smoking a cigarette, and my mom comes into the room, and she comes into the room, and she smells it, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm smoking." And she flips the whole thing and makes it seem like I'm smoking. Oh, you're smoking. I'm looking at her like, no, Mama, I'm smoking a cigarette. Where the hell will I get from? I'm here locked in this room. And then she was like, ah. And I was like, please don't tell Dad. And she's like, what? Don't tell Dad. She stands at my door and she calls him. He comes into the room. At this point, I've already thought into my head, whatever happens, happens. Like, at this point, what can I do? Nothing. I got caught. So he comes into the room and he says to me, is this true what I'm hearing? I said, if you're hearing it, then I guess. And he was like, huh? You're being sarcastic as well? So he walks out. I was never expecting this. He walks out. He comes back in a minute later. All I'm hearing is clink, 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 clink. I'm thinking, what? He comes back into the room and he comes into the room with 2 chains in his hand. I didn't even notice 2. I just noticed the one at first. It was the size of my arm in terms of like width, and then length as well, the size of my arm. And then he was like, yeah, so you're smoking in my house? And he literally just runs at me, and then he licks the thingy on this arm. It hits me. It connects. I feel it. Before it even comes off of me, I just grab it with him. And then that's when I realized he has a second one. And he let go of this one, so I dashed this one behind me. Now the second one's about to hit me. I said, nope, not again. So once it hits me, like, of course it's going to hit me. Once it hits me, I grab it up again. And as I'm grabbing it up, now he's trying to like tug it back and forth, back and forth. I don't let go. He lets go eventually and he squares up. I said, okay, you want to square up? We can square up. So I squared up too, I'm not gonna lie. I said, I'm defending myself today. It's not happening. So I square up. He starts punching me up, whatnot. He starts beating me. I'm holding my own, but I'm not doing much. I punched one time. It hit his jaw. He got so angry. He just went off on me to the point where finally now I'm laying on the bed, like half my body is on the bed. He is standing on top of me, the life out of me. That's all I see is his face. And all I see in the corner is my mom. My sister's crying. This commotion. And it's like 2 a.m. at this point. And at this point, I'm trying to take a breath. My eyes are rolling to the back of my head. I can't breathe. I'm thinking, oh my days, this is it, Smear. You're dying right here. That's it. As I'm about to lose consciousness, all I hear, like, I suddenly just get a rush of air coming in. I'm thinking, I look up, I look left, and my brother came into the room and he dragged my dad off of me. And he's looking at my dad like, are you okay? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, are you okay? And my dad's there screaming, I brought her into this world. I'm taking her the fuck out. She's not living beyond tonight. And he runs into the kitchen and he grabs a knife and he comes back. He charges back into the room. And my brother's there in front of me. And my brother's looking at him saying, if you want to kill her, you're going to have to go through me. Finally, my brother takes the knife off of him. I don't know if he relaxes. I don't know. They leave the room. I'm there traumatized thinking what happened. But I locked myself in the room for the next 2 days. My brother came to me the third day, told me, hey, Smear, the front door's open. I said, what? He said, yeah, the front door's open. Nobody's in the house. I will be leaving right now. So if you want to leave, this is your chance. I already had a bag ready to go. I just grabbed my bag and I ran away. Came back to UK this time around. At this point, I am 21. They put me in a refuge, women's refuge. And yeah, and that's how I came back. And that's how I kind of escaped everything. I didn't look back, moved forward, got myself into college, into university, studied psychology and sociology. There's nothing that I can say from the top of my head that I have good memories of. However, what I do like to do is enjoy the little things in life. So I try to find enjoyment in every day, everything that I do, just to remind myself that it's not all so bad out there. But one thing that I can say is that with the history and the things that I've been through in my life, I'm glad to see over the last year that once I've kind of shared these things, there are a lot of people that have resonated with this, that have similar stories. A lot of people that have reached out to me to say that they feel the same or that they've been through something similar and they've never heard anybody speak up about it. I just want to say I'm kind of glad that I'm speaking up for them. And yeah, I'm just glad that I made it out on the other side as who I am, and I haven't lost the person that I am, and I still like to find joy in everything that I do, and it's not all doom and gloom, if that makes sense. A lot of abuse happens behind closed doors and in the hush-hush community. Everybody loves to keep it down low, quiet, shame, What I say is speak up, tell somebody, tell anybody, tell everybody, just speak up. Because one thing I kind of regret is, why didn't I speak up sooner? Because maybe I wouldn't have gone through everything that I went through had I spoken up sooner. So my thing is to everybody, I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish every single person comes out of the situation that they are in a lot more happier, healthier, and safer. But please speak up, because with silence, a lot of things happens. And the more people that know about it, the more people that can help you, that can make a change.
All right. That was a long video, but what she said, I agree with everything. You know, yeah, I agree with what she said at the end, and I feel bad for her that she had to go through all of that. No woman should go through what she went through. Um, and the last video of tonight, is it is a video of what I was talking about earlier. And again, this is when I saw this video and I was getting ready for the live stream, you know, I had these videos ready. Um Honestly, I don't know what to say. Uh, and and it turns out that this woman is from California. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna show y'all the video. Hang on, I'll be right back. Hang on, I'm still trying to find the video. I think I found it. Okay, see. And it looks like I gonna have to read what it says. It says, ain't that some, you know what, two cops escape charges of mutilating a black woman's corpse. Um, and it also says here the family of Michaela Shar, Sharman, Sharman, a woman who died of an overdose in 2022, has spoken out after. Well, it says the family of Miss Sharman, you know, they were speaking out after a Northern California prosecutor dropped the charges against two officers accused in her death. According to NBC News, the cops moved her body to a dumpster and set it ablaze. Yeah. And that was the video. That was the final video I wanted to show y'all. But yeah, yeah, but like I said, at the end of the day, you know, these stories happen, keep happening, you know. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say this. Black women, please be safe out there. And if you're in an abusive relationship, leave that relationship because it's not going to end well if you keep staying in that relationship. And also want to point out that, you know, there's gotta be some accountability when on the justice system's part as well. But yeah, that is the final video for tonight. Um, I got to go to bed because tomorrow I'm hanging out with the family again. But yeah, I want to thank y'all for coming to the live stream again. As I always will say, make sure to like, share the live stream, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're notified whenever I go live or drop a video. And until next time, peace.
you.